Some years ago, I had blackberry plants planted in this area. I didn't like where they were anymore, so I removed them all and they ended up perishing. This was about 2 years ago, and fast forward today, and they are growing here again, right in front of my raised bed. So I decided to just remove the raised bed to another place and to keep the blackberries right here where they are. So I know that you're noticing that my lips isn't corresponding with the voiceover, and that's because I had to do a voiceover because I had a mom moment where my mic was not really connected. So this raised bed was mostly empty. I have a few things in there that I need to remove, and some plants actually went to seed already, so I am just going to take those out. And I have this salvia plant, which is the biggest plant I have here. And I'm going to move it to my front yard along with another salvia plant that I have there. I am trimming this plant back, and that's because it already started flowering. And I also wanted to focus on growing once I transplant it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just cutting off all of the flowers and just leaving some of the leaves on. So when I transplant it, it should be easier for the plant to establish itself. So I planted this salvia plants last year by seed, and this year they seem to have really established themselves. And in this area where I'm going to place my salvia plant, I have a lot of zinnias growing here. They are volunteer zinnias. You know, sometimes when you grow zinnias, they just spread their seeds, and I didn't collect everything, so they're growing right here. So I had to pull those out of the ground, and then now I'm just putting in my salvia plant. For some reason, I kept on calling this stevia, even though I know what it is. It's just, I don't know. Next, I am going to remove the kale out of this area. This type of kale, the curly kale, seems to always do the best in my garden. I don't know why. I can grow this kale basically all year round and I wouldn't have much issues, but any other kale, I would have all the issues in the world. So I have a little tiny area next to my shed, so I'm just going to plant the kale there because it gets enough sunlight, but it also gets pretty much a lot of shade in the summer. So I think that this area is actually perfect for kale. And there's already a kale here, so I'm just going to grow a few of the kales together and pull all the kales out of this bed and place it over there next to the shed. Now, these are some lacinato kale that I do have here, but they're all going to seed and they're all pretty much done. So I'm just going to pull it out, let the seeds dry and collect them. So I am happy about removing this raised bed because there are so many Bermuda grass that is growing in this area. And it's so annoying that sometimes it starts creeping into my bed, and this bed is very low. So I can remove this bed and put it someplace else. Plus, some of my other raised beds are a little bit too close. It's too close to my worm tower. So it's best that I do remove this bed. That's just some of the mistakes that I've made, is placing things a little bit too close to each other or not even considering the spacing of where I put everything. So I'm removing some elephant garlic that I had here growing. I'm going to put them in some water and hopefully that I could transplant them. I also have some calendula, which I am putting in a different area. I think that it will be great next to my beets and it will give it some color over here. And I'm just going to water that in. So now it's time for me to remove this bed. It was actually pretty easy to remove. All I had to do was pick it up and just leave the soil there. And I'm going to place it somewhere else. This is actually my second time moving this bed. It used to be on the hill before. That's why there you have those wood that's there. I actually have the raised bed upside down. I'm planning to just cut those pieces off, but I used to have it in a different area before. So I am placing it over at the side of my house next to another bed that I actually just created out of recycled material. So I'm putting cardboard box at the bottom of it. I'm just going to water that in We had just mowed the lawn and we are just throwing some of that debris onto the raised bed at the bottom. Well, we didn't mow our lawn. It was actually my neighbor's yard that we mowed. A little bit of it that is at the boundary of my yard because I don't want their stuff to come over, their weeds or whatever to come over into my area. I usually just try to mow a little bit of my neighbor's lawn. My children were kind enough to finish filling up this bed. They probably overfilled it a little bit too much, but that's fine because once that grass and leaves at the bottom starts composting, it's just gonna just sink anyway. So I'm not too mad about that. I am going to try something on this bed, and you see that I tried it in the other bed right next to it. I'm going to do a little bit of square root gardening. And I have my youngest son. He's going to help me because he likes using hand tools, and I'm not really a tools kind of person. So he's just going to help me drill in some screws, and then we're going to tie some string so that we could divide up the garden into 1 foot areas or 1 foot pieces or parts or whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to do. So we're just measuring out every 1 foot, and then we're just going to put a screw there. And then when I am done with those screws, I'm going to tie knots and tie those strings to the screws. I haven't really watched anyone do this. I just looked at some books of square root gardening and was like, okay, I guess that's the way how it goes. So I am just kind of doing a little bit of my own thing, but I'm sure this is how it actually goes. Could be wrong, but I am just partitioning off this bed, and I'm going to try it out to see if it actually is better to grow it in this way or not. They do sell the square foot gardening. There's like a square. I seen it, I think on Amazon, that they sell that have like the way that what seeds, how many seeds of what plant you can grow. And that's actually pretty useful, but I don't have one. So, and all the plants that I'm going to grow here are going to be bigger plants that requires mostly all 12 inches. So we have everything completed. I need to cut that wood at the top off before someone hurts themselves. But this is my elephant garlic that I am going to place in the ground. I'm just gonna, not in the ground, but in this bed. I'm gonna replace them in the bed. And with square foot gardening, I guess that I would separate this the way that you would leeks. But I think that these are a little bit too big. So I'm just gonna place about 6 of these in this area. And I do have 7 plants, so I have one that's left over, and I'm just gonna put it in the area right next to it and just plant something else there, which I am going to plant some parsley. I do have parsley currently in the garden, but it's going to seed now, and I do like parsley. Parsley is very good for your body, and so sometimes I juice it along with cilantro just so I could get toxins and metals out of my body. I have some pepper plants that are not doing good at all in these cups. I planted them late, but they're not really growing. They're just stunted. So I'm just going to transplant them. They are very young. And if they die, I don't really feel any ways about it. But I'm just going to transplant it in this area and see how that goes. Hopefully they live. If they do, that will be even better for me. But I already planted all the pepper plants that I would need for the year. This is just extra pepper plants that I always plant extra, and sometimes I do share plants with my neighbors, but I'm just gonna put it in this ground. Next up, I have some eggplant, which is some Chinese string eggplants. We really do enjoy this eggplant a lot. I grew it a few years in a row, and this is something that's definitely a keeper for my family. My sons and my husband, he likes it too, but he's not really an eggplant person. But we like it in stir fries along with some beef. So it's pretty good in that way. So that's why I am making sure I plant way more of this eggplant. So over in my main garden area, I have a lot of holy basil that are just popping up everywhere. So I'm going to pull some of them out because I don't need it in those areas. And I'm going to place it in this bed as well. I do like holy basil. I grew it last year for the first time and I saved a lot of them. But recently, I actually broke my jar that had all of my holy basils. So I'm happy that I have a lot coming back because I did save seeds, but I didn't start any new plants. And so it's kind of good that they popped up. I didn't have to do the work. And now I am also placing some Roma tomatoes. These are also, I normally cluster start all of my tomato seeds. And so I had just pulled them apart and decided, you know what, let me just plant them in the ground now and hopefully they establish themselves. And next I am putting in some butterfly peas, which I do like because this bed was a 3 by 5.5. It wasn't exactly supposed to be 6 feet, but you know, when you buy lumber these days, they're not exactly true to size. So that's just what it is. And then lastly, I am putting in some marigold. And this is what my bed looks like right now. Hopefully everything establishes well. My sons decided that they're going to help me and try to see if we could tame this blackberry bush at least a little bit, at least for now. This is just temporarily. I will have to come up with something a little bit more sturdy, but I just need it out of the way because this blackberry plant was growing so tall and it was slapping everyone in the face whenever we would try to walk by. My children can have blackberries because they do have fruit on it, and we can have blackberries this year. And hopefully we'll just move. We will just not live here anymore. And then we don't have to worry about this blackberry plant. We could just maybe take it with us and have a better setup for a garden. Like, I am traumatized about hills. Like, my next property, when I do move, I do not want a hill. I don't want hills. I don't care for it. Growing garden on a hill is very challenging. And we try our best by placing raised beds on the hill anyway so that we can maximize our space. But I have made a lot of mistakes trying to grow things on a hill that did not work out, planting things in wrong areas where it did not work out. The beautiful thing is that I am able to fix a lot of these mistakes that I've made, and hopefully I will have a good year this year. So if you're growing a garden this year, I pray that your garden is successful, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!